taking over the, let's see, hold on. Do this, and then do that.
Made myself the host, if that's what you're looking for.
Oh, is that done already?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. The pea dong beard. Where's Paul? Paul, do you have an altered, what's it called that, another personality somewhere, online somewhere? I saw this other guy online with doing some sort of podcast, and I kept looking at him and I kept saying, that's Paul, but that's Paul. At first, I thought it was Isaac because of the beard. And I said, no, it's not Isaac, it's actually Paul. But there was another name there. So if you want to, if you don't want anyone to know about it, Paul, I know. All right, so we have, where's Nizam? Can you speak about the topic that you wrote a beautiful invitation about?
I don't know. It was easier to write it. I thought you were supposed to speak about it.
But you're gonna introduce it. What was going on in your mind?
Well, actually, you know where I recently learned about something in psychology called complex PTSD, which is different than normal PTSD. And complex PTSD is defined as exposure to prolonged trauma, whereas PTSD is like a single traumatic event, like a car crash or a war scene or something. And I just suddenly felt like being human is CPTSD. Like we're just constantly exposed to trauma, whether subtle or gross. And then thinking about Buddhist psychology, which holds the belief that fundamentally we are enlightened beings. And so, yeah, like seeing our dance with enlightenment as this dance between trauma and just resting in our true self, which is an untraumatized, completely open, enlightened being. And seeing trauma as something that we accrue or something that is added on top of our natural state, our natural self, which is the similar perspective that Buddhism has around enlightenment being your kind of fundamental basic state. And we have all these layers on top that are obscuring us from that awareness or that understanding. So I was really, curious to hear from you and discussion around how Buddhists think about trauma and why we have this kind of, why aren't we just aware of our enlightened self? Like,
All right, that is a very big question, and we are going to answer it in half an hour, even though it took us quite a few billions of eons trying to answer, but we're going to answer it today. Not. But we're going to explore it a little bit to understand exactly the questions that you raised, especially the last question in the email about if we are already, if our fundamental nature is enlightened state, then why all this? Okay, somebody's asking a question. Nice. Emmett wrote something there. Instead of life is suffering, a modern Buddha may have said life is CPTSD. Yes, I guess. Yes, that would be the modern term that the Buddha would be using right now. Okay. All right. So, Emmett, you want to come in and then do the normal introduction? And thank you, Nizam.
Sure. Welcome to Home Online. We've been doing this for a couple weeks since the world shifted into this mode of being. The calls have been really great, and we've been focusing on some Buddhist meditations that Phuntsok has been leading that have really been of the moment, and addressing what's going on in our lives and what's going on in the world right now. So I've been really excited, looking forward to Wednesdays, and I'm looking forward to this meditation as well. So we'll do a meditation. Phuntsok will probably give some commentary on that meditation afterwards. There may be some time for questions, and we'll close out.
Okay.
And if you can just be mindful to keep yourselves on mute when you're not speaking, or make sure you're muted while we're doing the meditation. Just keeps the audio cleaner for everybody else, so we can hear. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Emmett. All right. Is Richard in the house? No. Okay. So the meditation that we are going to do is a meditation of re-experiencing the trauma that threw us here. No, not exactly. Okay. But it might be something along that line. It's a meditation of letting go, okay? And trusting the process of letting go. So first, check into your body, because meditation is not just done in the mind. Our entire being is participating. Call all the different parts of yourself into alignment. And since the body is always present, being aware of the sensations in the body is a wonderful way to begin to be present. So begin with just the feel of the body. Don't worry about whether you feel the entire body all at once, or if it's jumping from one part to another. Don't worry about that. As long as it's any part doing with the body, anything to do with the body, then you're doing it. Your mind knows what it's doing. It's doing it perfectly okay. Just let the body bring you to the present moment. So however you're feeling that, let that settle. And have a tiny portion of your mind aware that you are aware of the present moment at this very moment. There might be the critical part of yourself telling you, well, the present moment is supposed to be blissful, it's supposed to be this, it's supposed to be that, I'm not experiencing this, what's going on? As long as you're aware of the body, whatever sensation is arising, wherever it's coming from, congratulate yourself, you're aware of the present moment. Some part of you is. Congratulate that part of you. And as you are aware of the body, you bring the intention, hey guys, we are going to meditate, and allow the intelligence in the body to respond. And that intelligence will give you advice, okay? Oh, you want to meditate? I know what to do. Listen to this, just do this. And you feel a sort of like an instinct or inspiration or insight arising from the body's intelligence through telling you, hey, there's discomfort here, There's pleasantness there. Keep that, make adjustment here, because the body wants you to, that intelligence wants you to arrive at a place that is very, very much approaching the meditative state. You want to begin to experience in the body itself the sense of touching the meditative state. So any measure of a sense of calm, of a sense of pleasantness that you notice, immediately bring awareness to it. Don't be attached. Don't be rejecting anything that is not that experience. Just be aware of it. The same way we're just aware of any sensation that told you this is body. And let that intelligence guide you how you should have your legs. Make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're stable. Make adjustments if you have to, and make the adjustment consciously, deliberately. And already you should start to feel that you're touching the meditative state just by bringing awareness to that and making the adjustment. That sense of calm, that pleasantness, that's your indication. Yes, rejoice, you're approaching the meditative state. You're getting closer and closer already to that fundamental nature. The closer we get to it, the more power we have access to bring about meaningful transformation. And check the spine, check the torso. You want it to be comfortable. You want to feel upright, but comfortable, not stiff, not uptight. Then bring awareness to your arms from the shoulders all the way to the tip of your fingers. Just let them be loose so the shoulders can be naturally even. And pay attention to the head and neck, how they are completing the uprightness of the spine, and center the head and neck so that there is no holding them consciously in place. They are holding themselves in place. Mouth, teeth, tongue are resting in their natural places. Eyes are resting softly. Whatever is for you, soft resting for the eyes. Closed, open, slightly open, halfway open, staring straight ahead, whatever works for you. And through each one of the parts that we've scanned, make sure that you feel some sense of a connection to a calm, to a pleasantness, to whatever degree, to whatever measure, even if it's less than 1%. And noticing that, rejoice. It's telling the mind, this is a direction to go into. Telling our being, this is the direction we want to go to. Now, to be able to completely let go of the body, that is, through the body, experience a sense of letting go. Feel the contact between the body and your cushion and the ground, or your seat, wherever you're sitting. And whatever, just like before, whatever that's point of contact, whatever you're feeling, that's it. It wasn't supposed to be anything else. And the beautiful thing about when the mind is absorbed into anything, and we're gonna get into that later, when there is an actual state of absorption in anything, there is an ecstasy. So when the mind is afraid of or hesitating to allow itself to be absorbed into something that you're directing it towards because it thinks, oh, that's too boring, I don't want to be absorbed into that. Remind the mind that if you somehow can completely absorb yourself into just that sensation between the point of contact between your body and the ground, that will give you such ecstasy. So there is really nothing boring when it comes to complete absorption. So as you feel that point of contact, you feel the stability of the ground holding you. So that's the earth. For millions of years has been doing this, supporting, holding. So trust that and just let the body go. And you may notice you were holding the shoulders a little bit, you let them go. You may be holding the hips a little bit, you let them go. And that sense of calm, that pleasantness is enhanced a little bit because it is enhanced in the body. Now the other parts, the breath, the energy, the mind, they also become a little bit calmer and experience a little more of that pleasantness. So just allow that to take place. You don't have to make it, just allow it. Okay? Now we're going to make the commitment breath. I'm going to meditate. What is meditation? It is something to do with accessing and abiding in ever subtle levels of my own consciousness. Why do I want to do that? There are powerful means to bring about this kind of transformation, that kind of transformation, this kind of awakening. Let it be relevant to you, why you're meditating, whatever it may be, as long as it's relevant to you, bring that to mind. That way you're sending a message to all the different parts of you. This is why we're doing this, so that other parts won't feel, oh, this is too boring. I don't know why this is happening. Let me get out of here. So they can all participate, asking all of them to join, to participate, to cooperate. So hold that. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to enter. I'm going to access ever more subtle aspects. And you feel ready in the body, in its comfort, in its stability. You feel ready in the breath. You feel ready in the mind. You feel ready emotionally. You feel ready energetically. And with that sense of readiness, we're going to take a full breath, a deep breath in through the nose. And then when we release through the mouth, we'll re-experience that sense of letting go and just abide in that letting go. And whatever comes up, let it come up. Physically, emotionally, nothing is to be rejected. Nothing is to be grasped onto. Okay? So get ready in the body, ready in the breath, ready in the mind, ready emotionally, ready energetically. And in that sense of readiness, I want you to think of, you want to land at the end of the exhalation as close as you can get to your fundamental nature, whatever it may be. Okay? So hold that. And then you may realize we are holding ourselves back, and we might maybe discover why are we holding ourselves back from that. Okay? So hold these thoughts in mind, hold that readiness, get ready for that, to make that commitment breath. If you're feeling nervous, that's good. That means parts of you feel this is serious, this is relevant. So don't worry. And gently through the nose, a nice deep breath. And through the mouth, just let go. And let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. Keep letting go, keep letting go, keep letting go. Keep feeling that sense of letting go. Let go in the body, let go in the breath, let go in the mind. Keep letting go, keep letting go. Let all, whatever is arising, let it arise, let it arise. Whatever is going away, let it go away. Just keep experiencing letting go, letting go. Stay in that momentum. Letting go, letting go. Feel it in the body, feel it in the breath, feel it energetically, feel it emotionally, feel it in the mind. Just stay with that letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Don't push away, just let go. Don't push away, just let go. Let go, let go, let go, let go. Feel that momentum. Stay in that momentum. Stay in that momentum. So you're going to have two minds in the beginning. A mind that's aware of what's going on. The same mind that was aware of, this is my body, this is the point of contact between me and the ground. That same mind that was aware, it's not going to go away. It's going to continue to be with you. Just be aware of what's going on. And the mind that's going to let go. And then immediately, what comes up? What's available? What is present as I let go? And you let that go. It's going to be a continuous journey of letting go, and trusting what's arising, trusting the journey. So as you feel that sense of journeying and letting go, perhaps you notice some micro points of tension, maybe in the shoulders or the hips or wherever. Go into those places and deliberately let go. And notice what arises as you let go. Notice what's happening to the signs. Are they enhancing, the calming, the pleasantness? And as whatever sensations coming from within, as they arise through whatever senses, whether sense of touch, whether it's visual, whether it's hearing, whether you're tasting something in your mouth, whether you're smelling something, whatever it is that is arising, whether it's some kind of a thought. The thing to notice is not to stop and examine it, but to notice, oh, how clear was it? How clear is it? How bright is it? How vivid is it? And just let it go. And if you're experiencing, I don't see anything, I don't feel anything, let that go. That is also an experience. Let it go. I'm going to guide you a little further, and you're going to continue to drop, let go. So 3 more full breaths with that same attitude of letting go. Through the nose, a nice deep full breath. And through the mouth, let go. And feel that letting go, stay in it, stay in it, stay in it, stay in it. And the breath may not want to immediately want to come back. Don't force it, let it come back on its own. And when it's back, the in-breath, stay where the exhalation took you. And while staying in there, another full breath. In through the nose. And then let's wait for everyone's inhalation to come back by itself. Okay, now together, last full breath in through the nose. And again, and keep watching where you're going. Keep watching. And make sure the posture is nicely aligned. You're comfortable. Make last-minute adjustments if you have to in the body. And without conceptualizing what it could be, think of fundamental nature, whatever that means to you. Fundamental being, true self, true being, true whatever. True state. Without conceptualizing, without thinking of it being this or being that, it should be this, it should be that. Just a curiosity in that direction. And gently think in the space in front of you, there is this bright light presence. It's your guide. It's going to take you to that fundamental nature. For some of you, it's already has a color. It's probably electric blue or vivid green, whatever it may be or may not be. It might even be changing. As long as you don't feel yourself, your imagination actively doing anything to it, but you feel a sense of observing it, that's good. And if nothing appears, for some people, there may not be an actual visual, just say to yourself, there's this bright presence in front of me. It's going to take you on a journey to get you closer to your fundamental nature. And what you need to do is to simply let go. And as you hear and see those inner sensations, immediately remind yourself, clarity and radiance of the mind. Trust, respect, gratitude. And feeling ready to come to rev up the journey. Bring that bright presence to the crown of your head. And feel ready. Feel ready. And that bright presence collapses into a tiny point of light, as brilliant as a million suns, descends through the crown of your head, and the journey begins. Let go, let go, let go. Whatever comes up to your mind, just have the attitude, let go. So let your mind go wherever it wants to. Let your mind embrace whatever it wants to embrace as the universe, whatever it considers universe. Let it think about it. Let the mind go anywhere. Let that go and then come into your immediate surroundings and just feel your immediate surroundings. Let your mind go in memory, in sensation to your immediate space. Now let go of that and let the mind go into the body and just feel the body. Wherever the mind wants to go into the body, let it go there and let go of the immediate surroundings. And let the mind go, let the body go, let the mind go into the very point of light in the center of your heart. And then let that go. And whatever comes up, let it go. Each time you let go, think that you approach closer to this fundamental being. And letting go is not the same thing as rejecting. Whatever comes up, if it can be given any label, let it go. Let that go. Let yourself drop into the space that you create when you let go. Let that go. Yeah, you're doing nothing, and someone's heart is beating a bit stronger than usual. So let that go. Okay, that's enough. Let's arise from the meditation. At first, just be aware of the space of the meditation itself, the sense of calm, the pleasantness of whatever degree, the clarity, the radiance of any of the sensations. Go back to that point of light in the heart. Feel the body again, deliberately, consciously, and staying in that meditative space. Get ready to be aware of your immediate surroundings. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out the mouth. And begin to be aware deliberately of your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch, the temperature, the clothing, through your sense of hearing, and through your sense of sight. All right. I have to say, if your mind said, oh man, that was so boring. Then you have to tell your mind, well, you weren't absorbed in it, that's why. Okay. All right. All right, you can stretch a little bit if you need to do that. All right, and time to get into the topic. Trauma and enlightenment. First, I have to say, we have to clear up some things about what does it mean that our fundamental nature is enlightenment? How are we to understand that? And then we can start to go into trauma. Okay. And there's so many different traumas to talk about. Physical trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma. As you are doing the meditation and letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, perhaps for a tiny fraction of a moment, there was a time when you felt like an experience was about to arise. Part of you wanted to go into it out of curiosity. And part of you perhaps was, uh-oh, wait a minute, I don't think I want to go there. Because of a sense of either encountering something that is unfamiliar, or perhaps a sense of encountering something which will make us lose sense of self. And because of that, it lasted maybe just for a fraction of a moment. Then there was those moments perhaps when you were able to continue it rather than a fraction of a moment, but able to continue, but you reached a certain, like a plateau where you were not able to continue the experience. And there was a sense of, okay, what am I supposed to be doing now? What am I supposed to be experiencing now? And that, when you ask, what am I supposed to be experiencing now? There might be a sense of an expectation of what is supposed to be, and then trying to fill that space with what the expectation is supposed to be. And what is it that you're supposed to be letting go of? You're supposed to, whatever the experience is, let it go. Some people may have some difficulty with, what does it mean to let go? Let go of what? Sometimes the experience that you have is the experience of, I'm not experiencing anything. That itself can also be considered to be an experience for us to let go of. Now, the trauma that is being spoken about here is an experience. It's a overwhelming, devastating, usually that's what a trauma is supposed to be, a devastating experience that is not easy to process immediately. And it creates stains or residue in our being. Just recently I found out that it's possible, and all these different traditions, all these different modalities may be touching onto something where the physical body itself, like we can have in our psyche, in our body, trauma that is not necessarily related to our life, that we have inherited from our ancestors. And there is such a thing as, you can say environmental trauma that we all are experiencing together, and we are processing it in our own ways, in our bodies, in our minds, in our energy. And it's with us. We are processing it. So there are what you might call the individual trauma, the trauma that the experience that we've had as an individual that leaves a traumatic stain in our psyche. And on top of that, there is the stain of a trauma that we may have inherited through our parents, through ancestry. And there's the environmental, there's the social, there's the, you could say, the trauma of our age, the trauma of our epoch. All these traumas are traumas that we have to process. And at the conventional level, the trauma has so many different layers, so many different experiences, so many different qualities to it, so many ways of experiencing. For the trauma that we are referring to, the trauma of not being in our true self, that is the trauma that you can say, it sounds poetic, it sounds new agey, it sounds too quick fix, to the point where I would like to believe it because it sounds so, yeah, I think that takes care of everything. Okay, because I'm not fully aware of who I am, that's why there's this trauma that I'm experiencing, that's why all these bad things are happening. That's why I'm not able to pay my rent. That's why I'm having problem with this and that, with this relationship, that relationship. Oh, it's that fundamental trauma, I'm not in my true self. Oh, that's very easy. Okay, let me define my true self. Okay. I wish it was that easy. Wish it was that simple. And strangely enough, it is that simple. So simple, in fact, it becomes the mind in its habit of complicating things just naturally complicates it. Okay, makes it feels to be nothing. I just have to know myself, and that sense of complacency comes in. Oh, don't worry, you know, it's myself. It won't go anywhere. It won't go away anywhere. It's always be there. I'll get to it whenever I need to. And what does that mean? Not abiding in our true self, in our true nature. That we have to understand. And some of you probably have had what you might call spiritual trauma. And what I'm referring to as spiritual trauma is you have a spiritual experience that is unfamiliar, or perhaps a chunk of your ego was chopped away, and that was traumatic for you. You, in a sense of people might disagree with it, but the term will fit. It wasn't the time yet. It wasn't the right time for that experience. Some people will say, well, there's no such thing as not the right time for something like that, but just for the sake of giving it a label as to the reaction that we have towards it, we just call it an experience that was not the right time for it, even though in an absolute sense that may not be true, but just to give it a name, okay? We call it that. Right? And there are these experiences. And I have, I'm trying to get to, I have a bone to pick with a lot of seemingly very easy answers, very vague answers that seem to be answering the question that, or make an attempt at answering the question, but leaves us with nothing, nothing substantial. And one of my first bone that I have to pick with is, we are enlightened. What does it mean that we are already enlightened? How are we to understand that in the midst of everything that we are experiencing? And we have to be very careful how we understand that, or we will end up just perpetuating exactly this unenlightened state, unenlightened experience, equating it with the enlightened state itself. We have to make a distinction between our nature being enlightened and being enlightened. These are two different things. Okay. Are we enlightened? Immediately, conventionally speaking, no. What is our fundamental nature enlightened? Yes. Then how do you reconcile the two? In the invitation, there is this, if you have a sense of understanding, a sense of accepting fundamental nature is enlightened, and I'm not enlightened yet, then what I have to do is to remind myself that I am enlightened. It seems very easy to say it that way. But the thing is, when we say what I have to do is to remember that I am enlightened, what is this I that we are holding on to? What is this I that we are saying that this I that has to remember that it's enlightened? What is this I that say, oh, I am already enlightened? What is this I that we are holding on to? And that's what somewhat the meditation that we did of letting go is to basically, as much as you can, let go of this I. And this I, that's where trauma exists. Trauma exists with this I. And how does it exist with this I? Deep, 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 at the deepest level. And that's what we can say is the call towards enlightenment, or the call towards the spiritual path. At the deepest level, there is an understanding that there's a discord. There's a fundamental flaw, not a fundamental flaw at the base of reality, but rather in experience of reality. There's something fundamentally wrong. And we want to address that. And that's what calls us on the path, to answer, to address this sense of there's something fundamentally not right here. And what is it that even a layer below that, you could say, is going on? What is the recognition that is going on that makes us say, this is fundamental, there's something fundamentally not right here? If we've been here before, if we have not been here before, how can we know that there is something wrong here? So this underlying they have deep, deep, deep level, and that layer underneath it that recognizes that it's like it's looking for something that is supposed to be there, and it's not seeing it. And that's what it's That's what gives it that experience of something fundamentally wrong. It's like, and it's what is it really, what is it's perceiving and what's remembering, you could say, is I am limited. I'm fundamentally not, I'm keep using the word fundamental here. Don't get too messed up with that, okay? It seems to me, I have to say that, it seems to me that I am really limited. And if this is who I am and what I am, then I shouldn't have any problems with it, right? Fire is not complaining that it is hot. Fire is not having a traumatic experience that it is cold or being hot or wanting to be cold, because that's the nature of fire, to be hot. That's what it is. So fire has no problem with being hot. That's what it is. But deep within us, we are looking at what seems to be me, and there's a deep, very deep level of memory that says, wait a minute, this is not what I'm supposed to be seeing. I'm seeing limitations. I'm seeing pain that I cannot deal with, that I cannot process. And I'm seeing myself, and the myself that I'm seeing, it doesn't make sense. And because of this is sort of coming up in the to the surface, then the trauma, therefore, is while we are identifying with whatever this is that we are calling us, calling me, at the same time, there is a discord with something deeper within us that tells us that's not me. So we're having an identity crisis. That's the trauma, an identity crisis. And it seems impossible to shake this off, because when we try to shake it off, there is this conviction that that's what it's supposed to be, and yet this conviction is flawed. And that's why no wonder we are traumatized, because we are fighting what seems to be two convictions. The conviction of this is not all there is, and the direct perception of what else do you see other than this? So this conflict creates this trauma of identity. And that's one level of understanding this. Now let's go deep, deep, deep now at the deepest level where there's no other depth to go to. What is there? And that's what is referred to as the enlightened nature. The problem of approaching it from the perspective of this I that I have, this identity that I'm attached to, is that as we approach it, there is this expectation of it being something, because that's what we are used to, things being something. So this enlightened state, we fantasize about it. We say it's blissful, it is free, it is unlimited. But when we are saying these things, it is blissful, it is free, it is unlimited, all these are concepts that we are holding with our eye that is misinformed already. And we are forgetting that saying it is blissful, saying it is free, saying it is these beautiful things, there's just tricks that those who are awakened, those who grew up, they tell us so that we should not be afraid of the journey. Oh, don't worry, it's blissful at the end. Don't worry, it's freedom at the end. So that we are not afraid. But we have no idea what freedom is. We have no idea what bliss is. We've tasted something that makes us think, okay, that might be bliss. We've tasted something that think that might be freedom. It seems like we can understand it. And because of that, we are lured into the path by those who already grew up to entice us to let go of this traumatic experience that we are holding on to. And when a topic like what I'm presenting is advertised by anyone, it seems like I'm going to tell you, okay, this is when the trauma began. In a relative way, I can tell you when this trauma began, when that trauma began, when this trauma began. But to sort of understand where the whole thing began in the very first place, we have to understand that's a concept that we're trying to fit into the reality. We can't let go of the sense that perhaps this fundamental trauma that we are addressing, that we are talking about, is not something that we can necessarily conceptualize into, oh, that's where it all started, over there. Asking for that question, asking that question, when did it all begin, is misunderstanding the very experience that you're having, the trauma itself. It is, in a sense, trying to escape from the trauma itself. Okay. Yes, that trauma had a beginning. This trauma over there you can say it's connected to this, it's connected to that. Or that's connected to, that's a social one, or that's a personal one, that's an ancestral one. We can point to things like that, but that's all at the relative level. Because we are asking for something that cannot be answered. We just have to accept it cannot be answered. That is the nature of it. The nature of it is it cannot be answered. That is the nature of it. And we have to accept that. Okay. So when you are able to take care of that, then we can sort of at least have a conceptual understanding of what it means that at the fundamental, most basic level, we are enlightened. So at the basic level, what we are, okay, don't hate me for saying this. At the fundamental nature, at the fundamental level, what we are is the potential to be exactly what you are now. What did I say? What? That's what enlightened state is? The potential to be messed up? Exactly. The potential to be traumatized? Yes, that's the enlightened state. Now stop fantasizing about what that is supposed to be, which is creating a pathology of wanting to escape from what is happening here and now. And this Nizam stated it nicely in the invitation, where there is this tendency, constant tendency of not being present. And at the most evident level of understanding that is, oh, it's boring what's happening here. I want something else. Saying what's happening here is boring is escaping. Okay? I'm not saying that you should just be a lump of vegetable and just accept whatever is going on. But the state of being discontent with just what is going on, whatever is going on, not being able to just be with it, whatever is going on, whether it's experienced as a pleasant thing, whether it's experienced as an unpleasant thing. Okay. It's escaping from the actual present moment. And what is the actual present moment is that feel of potential, we can call it that. It is the feel of just possibility, and out of which there is this experience taking place, whatever that experience may be. And it doesn't mean that if you're having an unpleasant experience, don't try to do anything about it. But don't have the sense of misunderstanding it and rejecting it and missing the fundamental ground that is free of it. Okay? The fundamental ground is free of it. That is not stuck to the fundamental ground, to the fundamental state, to the fundamental nature. But the fundamental nature is such that it allows for such experiences to be, whatever they may be. And right now, there's a sense of being limited. There's a sense of being finite. And this is also just an experience arising from this fundamental nature. And perhaps not to be scared when you're approaching it. You tell yourself little tricks like, oh, it is not painful, so I can go to it. Okay, you can give yourself little tricks like, oh, it's blissful, I can go towards it. Okay. And of course, it doesn't mean whatever you're experiencing you have no choice but to experience it. You're just experiencing a possibility. And you can say to yourself, this possibility, there's a part of me that enjoys it. But don't be attached to enjoying it. There's a part of me that is not enjoying it. And you don't have to be revolted by it. So the fundamental nature, where the grown-ups tell us that when we are in it, the only reference to sort of describe it to ourselves are bliss, freedom, and so forth. But that's not what they are necessarily. That's not what it is necessarily. But they're just reference points for us to have some idea about it. And we have to let go. When we're letting go, we have to let go of even those to fully experience it. It reminds me of something I read in the Taoist teaching, okay, which is not supposed to be Taoist teaching. I'm not a Taoist teacher, but it was nice when I read it. It's like, when you are dwelling, when you are aware of your fundamental nature and you are aligned with it, when you're a cow, you're a cow, and you have no problem with it. When you're a merchant, at that time, you have no problem with it. Because somewhere deep within you understand that that is not all there is. Okay, that is not the fundamental. That is not my absolute identity. It's just something that I'm carrying on right now. Just something that is being carried on right now. Okay, all right. I think I'm gonna get deeper now, and I hope I didn't lose anybody yet. Okay, all right. Until we are enlightened, until we are aware of our fundamental identity, fundamental nature, our experience of existence will be trauma. And the trauma in a relative world, in a relatively speaking, will be displayed in many different ways. Personal, social, ancestral, in all those different ways. Don't think of them as absolutely isolated events that needs to be addressed individually. We can do that. That will take it will continue to, it will take a very long time. But in a practical way of approach, in order to get to this real fundamental state, in a practical way, if the most immediate trauma that you're going through is personal and it is preventing you from investigating anything else, then go into be present with the personal trauma. And what I'm asking is it's not some easy thing, okay? If you hold this understanding in the absolute present moment, is this fundamental state, fundamental being that we can conceptually put the labels of descriptions of bliss, freedom, wisdom, whatever they actually mean, right? But they're cute enough to entice us, right? If we understand that in the absolute present state of anything, this is there in the depth of it. But not only in the depth of it, like you have to go through layers and layers and layers and then boom, you get into it. But it is spread throughout this experience, okay? So when it's personal trauma, whatever it may be, okay? I mean, people have so many different, we have done so much to each other to create such trauma to each other, right? That creates such personal trauma that it's not easy to just leap over them. So there is an opportunity. Whatever is going on is an opportunity to get to the fundamental nature, especially when it's bothering you about its existence, okay? Be with it. Just like when you were doing the meditation, there was that hesitation, there was something pulling you, something inviting you, but you were hesitating to go into it. So in that same way, when you're just sitting with that present, whatever trauma that's calling you, be with it. And you will find your mind going around, not wanting to be present, because the mind is afraid that in the center of this is going to find something extremely horrible, And what is it that we are most afraid of? Annihilation. We think annihilation will be met, or whatever that means, even, right? But somehow we seem to have an idea of what annihilation is supposed to be, and we're going to experience it. And that's just what's holding us back. But if you understand that it's just clothing, is just almost like a defense mechanism that we put around this experience, because on the surface of it, it's painful. So we think that deep within it will be excruciating pain, unbearable pain. Okay. And as we are approaching it, as we're getting closer and closer to that is being exactly in the very center of the present moment of this experience, we will go through the layers that will seek to convince us. See, I told you, it's painful. See, it's even more painful. See, it's even more painful. What are you? What are you? Or you just want more pain? But just have to remember, as you're going through this, wait a minute. Okay, I went through this pain. I wasn't annihilated. Here I am still in pain. And you go to a deeper level. Wait a minute. I wasn't annihilated, which was the thing I was completely terrified of. I'm still here experiencing it. So remind yourself, I didn't go through annihilation. And if you went through annihilation, okay, there won't be anybody there to be complaining about any pain, okay? But there you are, still going. So keep reminding yourself of that. And if it becomes too much, don't just eject yourself out of there. Tell yourself, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop here. Make it a conscious decision. I'm going to stop here. And then slowly take yourself out. And what does that mean, slowly take yourself out? Bring thoughts of whatever else you want to bring in. And it might be holding onto you where you can't seem to let go of, that is thinking about it, experiencing it. But don't worry about that, okay? Just bring to mind whatever else you want to bring to mind, okay? And slowly come out of it. And the body is a very beautiful aid, a beautiful companion for that. Feel the sensation of the body again. Feel the breath again. Those are always in the present moment. Okay? So bring attention to that. And when you have attention, when you have awareness of the physical body, the sensation of the breath and the heartbeat and things like that, then you can come out. If you have to walk, go for a walk. But remind yourself, the nature of that experience is not permanent. It's not going to last forever. Eventually it will go away. Just like there was a time it wasn't there and I brought it in. So it will not be there again. Okay. And when you feel ready again to go into it, then you can go into it, and always tell yourself, always, when it becomes unbearable or when it's just too boring, tell yourself, okay, I'm stopping now. It must be a conscious decision. Don't just eject yourself out of it, okay? I'm stopping now. And then bring yourself into something else deliberately, okay? Because that's more of the more practical sense. Now, not to confuse you, but it might confuse you. Excuse me. What is the nature of this experience that we're calling trauma? Is it coming from a different universe? From a different level of existence? Is it an invader of our existence? An invader of our universe? An invader of our reality? Coming from a completely whatever other reality there is out there? No, it's arising from the enlightened nature. It is the enlightened nature that permits it for it to exist. Whatever exists exists because the enlightened nature permits it. It's arising from that. So that's why even the traumatic experience can lead to a realization of true nature, of enlightened nature. Because even that is arising from that. That is why you can stay with it and eventually you will get to enlightenment, to enlightened nature. Okay. And doesn't mean that at the moment of being abused, at the moment of being traumatized, let that happen, you might get enlightened. No, that's something I take, I definitely do not prescribe that, and I'm against that, okay? But when you're in your meditation, the memory of the trauma is in your body, in your mind, in your psyche, in your being, and it's preventing you from moving forward. Then you can sit with it. Okay, sit with it like that. And I hope I answered the question. Since our fundamental nature is enlightened, where does this trauma come from? What's the answer to that? The answer is, that's not, that question is not in keeping to the very nature of the thing. Okay. It's ego seeking some conventional thing that doesn't exist. As you are doing the meditation, letting go, letting go, letting go. And when you were slowly encountering what seems to be unfamiliar, 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 nothing, nothing, nothing. There may have been a little fear that annihilation is about to take place. Uh-oh, I'm about to annihilate myself through meditation. There we go. And it's Phuntsok's fault. He's going to annihilate me, taking me through this bottomless hole. Okay. And I have to tell you, if you had a sense of fear of that, that was actually a good experience. Actually a good experience. Okay. And stay with that. Okay. So what's the thing to end with? Yes, our fundamental nature is enlightened, but because we are not aware of it, we are not enlightened. And when we become aware of it, it's not some otherworldly experience. It's being totally, completely present with whatever it is. Or I have to add to it, we are completely, totally present with what is without being attached to the manifestations, to the appearances. We understand the appearances, the nature of the appearances. That even though they appear to be monsters, we know that they're not monsters. They just appear to be monsters. All right, it's about that time. I don't know if I fully addressed that, the topic. I mean, there are ways of going into it where it becomes very heady, and I didn't want it to be heady. I didn't want to go into describing, well, this person says that person says this. Okay, who cares? That's usually my reaction. Who cares? This person said that person said that. The thing is, what is the experience that I can relate with? Okay, and I hope I touch a little bit on that. And yet, yes, your traumas are not irrelevant. Okay, they're not irrelevant. And there's nothing wrong with you for being traumatized by those experiences. And the traumatic reaction that we have is a sign of that deep, deep, deep level of recognizing, hey, something is not right here. Okay. Something is not right here. And last example, a child being traumatized. What experience has this child had in life for the child to know this is not right? And yet something deep within them tells that child, this is not right. This is not what's supposed to be happening. And because of this conflict, the child is traumatized. And the way for the child to be free of the effect of that trauma is to somehow allow the child to not be identified with whatever self, whatever identity had that experience. That's not your true nature. Your true nature is not something to be traumatized. Okay, the trauma is a sign that your true nature recognizes an experience that somehow was not right. Okay, I'm going to open the floor for discussions, debates, fights, questions, no answers. All right, anybody has anything to say? Maestro, Emmett?
If you do,
Question, Phuntsok. Can you hear me? It's Leah.
Oh, Leah, hi.
I'm laying in the dark. Otherwise, I would unvideo myself. You probably can't see me, but it was really beautiful. I love the topic, and the intro email also was very beautiful. Also, my question is: so in current time, if we're triggered or activated, and to me, that trauma reenactment is this idea that deep down my body says something's not right here, and I have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that reaction, it feels like there's no choice, right? It goes very fast, and then there's like a behavior or something that acts out that something's feeling of something's not right in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to slow it down, and I meditate overall to sort of slow that whole process down.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any other tools or, the one gift you gave me, I quote it all the time, is this: in one of the meditations we did the no wonder why, like we went back to the point of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and you asked us to feel what it felt like to be there, and then it was like, oh, no wonder why you do X, Y, and Z now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that sometimes when I feel the trauma reenactment and I lash out or something. I go, oh, it's okay. No wonder why. But what else can we do to keep trying to soften or work on that
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
part?
Yeah. What I would suggest is to continue doing that. And the thing is, it's a sense of identifying with the traumatized self, with the what was happening there. And because of that strong sense of identification, that's why there's the reaction, as if it is that. Let's say, for example, something happened to you when you were 5, and then now you're not 5 anymore, you're 10, 15, whatever, right? And some signals from your environment remind you of that experience,
Right.
and you can say, now you're triggered.
Right.
So when you're triggered, you have to begin with compassion for yourself, in a sense of when you understand, okay, no wonder why, if you have somehow a wisdom and insight as to what may have been the point that causes you to be triggered this way. But at the same time, you should tell yourself, you're all right to be reacting this way. Of course, this is the normal reaction to such and such an event, without telling it you shouldn't be doing this right now. Just tell you, yes, that's right. For such a thing, that's the reaction. That was wisdom coming out of you to react this way, taking into consideration everything else.
Mm.
You were only 5, this was such and such, and this was supposed to be, and of course, you're triggered. And as you're staying with this, you're not passing judgment on yourself. You shouldn't be acting this way. I'm not 5 anymore. And you're not, and at the same time, also, whatever power this reactivity to the trauma is having, it's actually slowing down.
Mm.
And at the same time also, and there's a healing taking place where the healing is a sense of disidentifying with that. Okay, not rejecting that, but putting it in a place of it's something that happened, and this is not what's happening now, and I am not this.
Right.
Okay, it's a slow process, but this is a way of not allowing ourselves to be triggered.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it's not going to be something that's going to take place immediately. Like, unless you're a master meditator, where you can go deep into meditations, and then when you go deep into meditation, and then you're able to see, oh, there it is, there that, okay, take that out, take this in, and then you come out, okay, now everything is okay, right? If you're not a master meditator, don't expect there is a meditation that you can do that will be able to do that, even though there might be a meditation that you can do, okay? In order for a meditation to be able to have immediate effect, you must have some means of going deep into the meditation and also be familiar with it at some degree, right? But understand, and this is to understand that it's gonna be a process. And then each time it happens, remind yourself, okay? The reason I don't talk is because, no, you were right at that time for not speaking. That was the natural thing to do. There's nothing wrong with that. And then that part of you being accepted, not being judged anymore. That part of you can now be at ease. And then if you need to talk, then you start to talk. If you need to stop talking, then you'll stop talking. If you need to, whatever, okay? But don't expect it to happen immediately. But each time it happens, remind yourself. Sorry for that very long answer, repeating myself.
Phuntsok, I had a hopefully quick question.
Yes.
If you could say anything to working with the process of dedicating efforts toward undoing traumas that we carry.
Oh, yes, that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'm saying yes to a question and thing. This brings actually a very good question about, and it's sort of, if you're in the Buddhist realm, you understand that there's Mahayana and there's non-Mahayana. Okay. In the Mahayana tradition, the Mahayanas are striving to be spiritual helpers. Spiritual helpers that is beyond death. All right? So you can be spiritual helper as long as you're alive, you know. You reach a certain level of attainment and you're able to help someone else who comes to you, okay? And that's universally accepted by all spiritual traditions, all Buddhist traditions. One of the unique things about the Mahayana is that it says there's a power in compassion that makes it possible for someone to continue to be of help even after the passing away of the body, even after death. And we're talking about the death we're talking about spiritual death. By spiritual death, I'm not talking about a morbid thing. I'm talking about you leave the realm of unenlightenment behind. Now you're enlightened, or that's what I'm referring to as a spiritual death, just for now, okay? So there's a power in compassion that allows for such persons, for you when you become fully enlightened, to continue to help, to continue to be of service, okay? And then you can ask, okay, in what way can we help? In what way can such beings help? They can help by establishing a connection with them. It's like dialing someone's number. Now you have them on the other line. Now you can do something to appease them, do something to get them to help you, if they can help you, right? So in the very beginning of our practice, of our journey, sometimes there are certain points we encounter that are very difficult for us to be able to tackle on our own. And we keep reminded, we are being reminded all the time, hey, this is a personal journey. You gotta do it on your own. No one else can help you. And yet you ask, and then, are you telling me the Mahayana ideal is all nonsense? All those beings supposedly achieve and then supposed to be able to help me and whoever else, they really can't do anything? So the Mahayana thing was just a trick. It's not real. So when you're feeling overwhelmed by whatever is going on, and now we're talking about trauma, there's what you might call the existential trauma. I'm not even sure if my using the term existential is even real as a real term that everybody understands commonly together. But what I'm calling existential trauma is the trauma of not being enlightened. Okay, that's what I'm referring to as existential trauma. Okay, there's that, and that's to be, in our everyday, whatever we do, we are dealing with it at some level, and eventually that's a big dealing with it, okay, and then overcome it, become enlightened. But before then, there are those other kinds of traumas that we experience, okay? And some traumas, unfortunately, are so deep, we're not even aware that we have them. We are so, they control us with such, it's such an automatic way that they are controlling us that we're not even aware that we are being controlled by them. It's like the blind, we call the blind side or something, right? There are those, and these are to be dealt with later. But there are those that we are aware of when we witness ourselves being triggered, and we know that this is not furthering us. It's keeping us back, and we feel that we can't seem to see within us the resources to be able to help ourselves. Yeah? And this is when you're deep into that, deeply into it, deeply into the experience, I'm feeling, I want to overcome this, I see this, but I don't see the resources within me to do this. Then you can appeal to whoever you are who have promised to help somebody like me. Now I'm appealing to you, help me in whatever ways you can, okay? And I think perhaps psychologically speaking, there's a sense of relief if you have a sense of help is gonna come in some form or another. And that relief might give you the opportunity to find the resources within you. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but somehow by doing this, by the conviction, what I am seeking to achieve, there are those who have already achieved it, right? And even something as mundane as this ailment that I have in my body, I'm not the only one who's ever had this. There are others who've had it before. And there has to be somebody who has freed himself or herself from this ailment. And this person can help me if I can find this person. So in this, as far as the spiritual realm is concerned, it's vast. We can't measure it. So there must be someone who has overcome this obstacle on the path, who has achieved a degree of compassion who can hear me through their compassion and will come and help me in some form, in some way or another. Okay. And that's when you feel you can't find the resources within you. And there is also when, for whatever measure, if you feel that, if you're convinced there has to be some sort of exchange, I do this and I get this back, which is, you know, a law of the universe and however you understand it. And that's when you can, this is what finally getting to what Emmett is, Emmett talked about, is you do something, whatever it is, whatever measure you're able to do. And because at the fundamental nature, at the fundamental level, this thing is pure, is connected to pure potential or is pure potential, you can sort of direct how it will, the effect that it will have. And that's the dedicating. You do whatever you feel is powerful. Even if you just say, Om Ahum, and if somehow you are convinced that you are connected, somehow it connects you to the power, and you say it, feeling what it connects you to. Or if you need to see something, if you need to do something more hands-on, give somebody a compliment that is difficult to give. Do something that has some measure of where you witness yourself doing something, witness yourself expending some kind of energy, okay? Then, after doing it, immediately after doing it, you say, by the power of this, may I be free of whatever the trauma may be. And again, it's not gonna take place, you're not gonna, right after that, and then you look over and the trauma is gone, but it's gonna be able to at least help you to gain some strength to overcome it. And you have to do this for some time, okay? So that's the answer to the question, Emmett. I hope it answered you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. But there's a question. Can you read the questions, Emmett?
Sure. This is from Letitia.
Mm-hmm.
When trying to not identify with the traumatized self, how do you know you are not getting into a dissociated state? In other words, can you expand on how it feels to let go of identification with the traumatized self versus getting into mental process of dissociation, disconnecting from our thoughts, our feelings, etc.?
Ah, yes, beautiful. In the very question, what is described is actually part of the process of what you will experience. Yes, there will be this wanting to disassociate. There will be this wanting to disconnect. And it's wanting to disassociate, disconnect from the experience, which you have where there is this trauma going on. And what will help is to identify what's going on. And of course, taking all, and you go back again, of course, taking into consideration what this thing is representing itself to be. Of course, this association is what is natural to happen. Of course, disconnecting is natural to happen. So the thing is, whatever the mind is doing, you have to understand the mind is trying to deal with whatever is going on. And we should encourage the mind to continue to apply effort in seeking to deal with what is going on. Perhaps disconnection, dissociation, not the ultimate ways of actually coming to coming to the point where we want to get to, but acknowledge that it's the mind making an effort. You know, treat the mind as a child the way you would treat a child who's making some effort in doing something. when they do something that is not immediately what they want to do or what they what's supposed to be, the thing's supposed to come, you don't just dismiss them and discourage them from making any effort. You praise the effort that they're doing, and then you guide them. Oh, is this where you really wanted to go to? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Okay, we have to, because there's a part of the mind that is somewhat of an adult that recognizes that, wait a minute, I think this is disassociation. Wait a minute, I think this is disconnection. So that part that is the adult that recognizes what's going on, let it talk to the part of the mind that is the child that is doing the thing, and then say, oh, that's good try. You're all doing something about it, and I recognize it, and I appreciate that. I mean, you can have the kind of a sense of conversation like that. And let the mind continue the process. And I think it's when we recognize and we sort of like blame the mind. What are you doing? You're disassociating. What's the matter with you? And it just stops there. Okay, oh, you don't want me to do anything? Okay, I'm stopping right here. And we stop, and we keep the mind at the state of disassociation, disconnecting. It needs to do that. It needs to have a process of going through that, maybe. So it can finally get rid of that. So it can finally arrive at not identifying with the traumatized self, okay? It's just like, I have to say, in an attempt to reconnect with the body, sometimes we try to reject the mind. In an attempt to reconnect with the mind, we reject the body. This is all of us. This is the expression. If there's something else, I don't know. But for now, this is what I have direct connection with, the body and the mind as this continuity. Okay. In the same way, the body has its ways of communicating and in dealing with things. We should allow it, encourage it. The mind also has its ways of dealing with things, and we should praise it when it's making efforts. Okay, and consider those things that are going on. They're not the full range of. It's not like the mind has arrived at the point where you say, "This is it. The way to stop this is disassociation." But I recognize it as a part of the process that the mind is going through. Okay, and just keep with the initial effort. Okay, and something very you find in the very, very, very early meditations, and also that is shared with many different traditions of just saying, looking at it, it's like the meditation where we were letting go. So verbally, you could say, this is not me, even though you don't believe it when you're saying it, but just hear yourself say it. This is not me, even though there's complete identification with the experience. Just tell yourself, this is not me. At least a fraction of you is not buying fully into this identity. Okay. And because it is not you, the grasping onto it as identity will begin to crumble. Okay. I hope that answered the question. I'm not even sure if it did or not. And thanks for that question.
Can I follow up on that?
Oh, please, please, please.
Well, I guess I'd be remiss also not to just thank you so much for today and for addressing this question so beautifully. So thank you. It also feels like what you just said about dissociation is like a really beautiful tool to also engage with just trauma in general, as a way of counteracting that desire to escape it by actually praising it or giving it love, or actually like thanking it as a way of counteracting our desire to push it away. But I never really thought about it in the context of this lecture as like a way of thanking trauma, as a way of getting me closer to my enlightened state, which I always thought it more as a practical, like, let me just be happy today and deal with my trauma, versus like, oh my God, I could just widen the perspective of thanking that trauma for a much deeper purpose. Just a reflection that came as you were speaking.
Yeah, thank you. And now give a little GIF. And Geneva will answer this. Will answer this. She answered it before. Is Geneva around?
She's not sure what
what I'm referring to. Yeah, it's whatever is happening at this very moment. The Geneva, did it suddenly come to you? No?
Yeah.
Whatever is happening at this very moment that it's happening, it's an opportunity. And that's why it's not recommended by me, but a lot of very traditional Zen places, a lot of very traditional Vipassana places, like you're sitting down, you're supposed to sit for an hour or whatever, and then you're experiencing pain, and then the guide tells you, oh, an opportunity to be present. Okay. I don't necessarily recommend that because there's also an opportunity for you to do damage to your joints, but it's something like that, right? What you're seeking, the ultimate nature of, or what you're seeking when you're seeking the enlightened state, fundamental state, the door to that is whatever is actually taking place, especially if it's something that's nagging at you. And unfortunately, trauma is very nagging in a sense of making itself, wanting to itself to be recognized. So if you can take that as an opportunity. Janelle, you remember now?
No, I don't really remember what I said, but this is like the whole basis of my work. It's like using everything as an opportunity to transform yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like the path to healing or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it isn't like the magic rainbow road. It's like this thing that you're dealing with. Well, how do you use that? How do you integrate it? How do you work with it so that you become a better person? You know, don't skip over anything. I don't know that that's what I said, but that's what I believe.
Okay.
And it sounds like that's what you're saying as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Any debates? Any questions? Any comments? Good.
Hi,
Yeah.
Phuntsok.
Hi.
I just wanted to, I've been thinking, well, yeah, I wanted to respond or ask you about location and the human tendency to be like, it's over here, and then it's over there. This is where it is. And the need to have an idea that lives outside of you, or the apparent need to have some idea that has a location and space or time. I experience as the attraction to movement. But, you know, I have my own theories about it in terms of location, but you refer to it also as the identification of something's wrong or something's not, and that's where it's right, and it looks like this. And, you know, locating yourself, identifying yourself in relationship to something, whether it be space or time. And I've been thinking about that a lot because we're located in this home. So it's very apparent the new identification of self in relationship to where you are is more static. So there's this interesting relay going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I didn't do, I could have done with the meditation, was to take sort of point to some experiences prior to the letting go, and uh, through that experience, there may have been a deep sense of identity or a wish to identify with certain experiences because, oh yeah, this is okay. This is something I can live with. This is something I can identify with. I'll take that. Especially when it comes to very spacious and very sort of luminous kind of experiences, right? And the thing to remember is that everything that we experience, everything that we can put a label on, space, luminosity, all these things are expression of something beyond them, something that is not in its fundamental identity any of these things, but is allows for these things to be. So, and it's not that we should reject time and space, but understand that time and space themselves are just expressions. So we play with time, we play with space, we play with location, with an understanding that there's something fundamentally beyond them at the same time, and that as we are playing with them, we understand that in their most basic nature, there is something. To say something else will be misleading, but just for the sake of speaking, we cannot say anything else. But you could say there is something else. Okay. So even location, time, and space, as when they're experienced in the same way that we experience our trauma, as a sense that the thing that is. Oh, let me say something. I think Cassandra mentioned that last time, pointed to that last time. It's, you could say identity is a power, and it is very fluid, okay? When we place identity on something, in space and time, relatively speaking, that becomes identity. There is this experience, that what is the topic of tonight, trauma, because we have the power of placing identity on it. We identify with it, and it becomes identity. Okay? So that points to, because identity is so fluid, that it can identify with something even though at the fundamental level, it is not its identity. I hope that didn't confuse you.
That's interesting.
Identity is a power. It's very fluid. And we can identify with suffering, and suffering becomes our identity, because that's the power of identity. And I'm not talking about identity in the sense of disassociation, okay? Talking about really identifying, just like if we really identify with our fundamental nature, then we become enlightened. But because we're taking the power of identification away from that, and that's why we seem to be. And that's why we are traumatized. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I don't know if anyone has any question, because we're about to close out. Okay.
Phuntsok, quick question, because how are you?
Okay, how are you, John?
Good. So to what extent would you say that suffering and trauma being one kind of identification of suffering. I mean, some people think it's an imprint, can be an imprint. Some people think it can be a memory, and certainly it's conditioned by many, many things. So to what extent would you say that some form of suffering is necessary in order to realize true nature, right? So what we're talking about as true nature.
All right. That's a very tricky thing, and I have very strong opinions about that, and I will state my very strong opinions. It is not that one has to suffer in order for one to reach enlightenment, but rather, this is my personal take on it, is that depending on how we relate to suffering, suffering becomes an opportunity to for enlightenment. Okay? So you can have two people experiencing the same suffering, but because one is relating to it one way, and the suffering itself becomes a means for enlightenment. But it's not the suffering that becomes a means for enlightenment, but rather the person using it, uses it, and that person goes towards enlightenment. So it's not I would not say, oh, see, if it wasn't for the suffering, that person would not be enlightened. No, if that person did not relate to it, that experience a certain way, that person would not be enlightened.
So does that go to and imply something about intention and self-knowledge, kind of, the action of this is what I believe, or this is what, so you're talking about the difference in two people, one who experiences, the same action as suffering, and one who does not, right? So, I mean, does that go to, I guess, intention and understanding?
Yes, intention, understanding. The thing is, on the journey toward enlightenment, everything you encounter can be used to further that journey. And since suffering is something we have in plenty, you can't just wait for you to one day put it aside and then you can begin the journey. So use the suffering that life has thrown at you. But it doesn't mean, this is not some sort of ontological kind of thing where it can be said definitely, okay, you want to be enlightened, you got to suffer. That's not necessarily the case, okay? But we can't deny that we have suffering. So that's what we have, that's what we got to use.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I guess I've held you guys long enough. Some of you are probably saying, when is he gonna end? My God, what's with that guy? Okay, let's do a dedication meditation. Thank you all for stopping by, continuing the community. So we're going to end with a sense of community meditation and make a dedication. Okay. So sit in the posture that is conducive for you for entering into that space. While you are settling into that posture, remember the experience you had when you were in meditative state. And let that memory be strong enough to take you into it, or to give you a taste of it again. And as soon as you have that taste, take a nice deep breath. So let's wait for everybody else. Don't rush. Okay, now together, a nice deep breath in through the nose. And let yourself drop deep into that state. And let go, and feel yourself going deeper into that state, into that experience, letting go. tasting the calm, tasting the pleasantness, tasting the clarity, tasting the radiance. The sounds are coming, the colors are coming, the sensations are coming. Good. Let go, allow, allow. And there's a sense you have right now. We don't have to give some sort of reason, some sort of proof for it, but there's a sense you have that we are here together, that there's this community right here, right now. We are connected. There's a sense of she's over there, he's over here. There's a sense of sensing each other, okay? And just go into that sense, no matter how faint it may be, just stay with it. And imagine us as a circle, a tight-knit circle. And there's a sense of recognition of each other, honoring each other's individuality, and at the same time recognizing the individuality is not ultimate. And with that, from your heart, let a beautiful light come out, and all those lights collect in the very center. And as they collect in the center, then you can say, what is our composite being? Begins to arise. And as we feed into it, it feeds us, and it could get and it grows until it envelops all of us. And we let that grow. For those we know who are not in this immediate circle, let the light from the heart of this composite being go to all of them. So there's a group over there, there's a group over here, there's a group way over there, composite beings, and we are connected through our hearts. And together, the entire earth of beings recognize themselves as a composite being. And we dedicate whatever gifts we have received through this talk for being together, for sharing our energy, sharing our thoughts, sharing our presence to the greater composite being that we are. Gewa Diyi Kyo Kun Sonam Yeshe Tsogzok Shing Sonam Yeshe Lechung We Damba Kunyi Topar Sho. And without losing entirely that sense of community, of the composite being, make the intention to come out of the meditation. Take a nice deep breath. And reconnect with your immediate surroundings, your sense of touch, the temperature, the clothing, the cushion, the seat, the sounds around you. And slowly let your eyes take in light. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. See you next week.
Much.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Thank
you.
you, Phuntsok.
Thank you. And anyone who has an idea for something, you can do like Nazam did. Send me an email.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phuntsok.
So